Intercepted Russian call revealed the devastating situation for Russians in the front line, which is exactly not what Putin tells its citizens, because recently he had this address to the nation where he was basically saying that everything is perfect. In fact, it's not, and soon you will see why. And there's a truly catastrophic situation for the Russian Air Force, with them losing so many fighter jets in the last several days alone. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Oh! Well, it was a little bit funny, at least for me. Let me know, what do you think? Long story short, yes, we mentioned this address to the nation by Putin, which is like address to Federal Assembly, does not change the fact. This is basically where he sets the goals for Russia for the next at least 6 years, says the current condition of Russia, what it was able to achieve, what's not, obviously the situation in Ukraine, all these kind of things. And the thing about this address to the nation is that several days before, it was announced that this whole broadcast will be on billboards, projected on the buildings, it will be in the buses, in the trolleys, pretty much everywhere, in public transport, and so everywhere. Just like gives you the vibe of 1984 by George Orwell or City 17, like when the big brother is watching you and you might be just walking across the street, you're busy with your own thoughts, you're in a rush for work, but inevitably wherever you look, in 1 minute or less, you're gonna see Putin talking about how good everything is in Russia. And I mean, yes, even for Russians themselves, it would have been outrageous, I would say maybe 5 years ago, but pretty much yes, as expected. Right now they just walk across the street and they just don't pay attention. They seem like they do not care, but the propaganda is working because it is right there in front of their faces, and whether you want it or not, you can still hear it. And by the way, I did mention the word attention, because guys, I also do pay attention to your comments and feedback, and I always try to make my videos better for your viewing experience. And if you remember, yesterday I asked you to write your most creative, the best comment you can come up with, and if it gets the most likes, I will put it in one of my next merch. Guys, sorry, a lot of comments were very explicit. I don't think my supplier will approve them, but the one which is winning comment, it's this one. It says, Russia, the second best army in Ukraine. So starting, I would say, this month in March, I will try to put it on t-shirts, hats, and maybe somewhere else, we will see. So please stay tuned, check out our website therussiandude.com regularly, because there will be some very good surprises in the near future. Don't forget about 15% discount for the iconic yellow hoodie, and every single Patreon receives additional discount, which can be used several times. The links to my website and Patreon are down below. But okay, in all seriousness, since we did mention this address of Putin to the Federal Assembly, we obviously have to speak about what he was talking about, however not serious it might sound. And after this we're going to talk about the intercepted Russian radio communication, which reveals the true situation in the East, which is way different from what people think. And so yes, the address of Putin to the nation. Right here I would summarize for you the most significant statements he made in relation to Russian-Ukrainian war, because the whole thing was lasting for more than 2 hours, so obviously summarizing it all will take another video. So let's just focus on what is relevant, right? I would say that this makes sense. First of all, he did mention that all the people who are participating in this war, specifically the soldiers, they will return home as heroes, and they must receive all the privileges, all the benefits. Their life must be the easiest life possible in Russia, whether they're gonna be entrepreneurs opening their businesses, where they're gonna be studying, or if they even decide to continue their career within the Ministry of Defense of Russia. Basically, if you go fight in Ukraine and you come back alive, you will be like untouchable persona in Russia. But during this 2 hours monologue there were a lot of very funny moments, such as, for example, whenever Putin was saying about that the Ministry of Defense of Russia and Russian generals, officers, they do everything possible to save as many lives of the Russian soldiers. I don't know why, but for some reason the broadcast decided to show this guy with his reaction, kinda does not believing actually whatever is Putin saying. But if you do pay attention to the background of this guy, it gets even worse for the Russian propaganda, because there is a guy with this emblem, with this pin on his suit, which shows the colors of a Ukrainian flag. Yes, I know, I'm sure this is not Ukrainian flag. I mean, otherwise how would he even be allowed in this event? I'm sure there is some kind of a symbol of some of remote cities or towns in Russia, but still, just the colors itself, blue and yellow, in the federal channel are already very questionable decision by the Russian propagandists to show it on the screens, but yet they did it. And I mean, we just cannot let this guy with the eyes just let go that easily. I came up with at least 2, I would think, in my personal opinion, funny explanations why would he make it. So here is the first one. Oh, if they catch me sleeping, I'm done. And the second one is, this is the face you make when you have a 8 a.m. meeting on Monday morning, because boss cannot catch me sleeping. And yes, the way I presented these sentences is way too cringe. I agree it myself. It was very bad for me recording it, but doesn't matter. Now I want you guys to give me your best impressions of what was going through this guy's head down below in the comments, and yes, I will try to go as many of them as possible. But apparently, some even higher ranking officials or the representatives of the Ministry of Defense of Russia, they were not that afraid of falling asleep, at least temporarily, at least like closing their eyes for like a couple of seconds, like they're not gonna see it, not gonna see us, but the Russian propaganda machine was still able to catch them. Some people were able to sleep during the address of Putin to the nation, so let's follow their history closely. I'm sure something, quote-unquote, is about to happen. And the most interesting part is that some of them were sleeping whenever Putin once again was threatening the world with the nuclear apocalypse. He said that nuclear forces of the Russian army are fully ready to be deployed in case there's any soldiers from NATO on the territory of Ukraine. This country will suffer significant consequences. But at the same time, Putin, like literally in the next sentence, he added, but we cannot use nuclear weapons because this leads to a world apocalypse. Very controversial statements to make in such short period of time, but this is what he did. And guys, if you are still awake while watching my video, can you show it by simply liking this video and subscribing to my channel? I would like to see if there's an increase in statistics, which means that you actually pay attention, and for this, guys, I'm very thankful. Thank you so much. You can also follow me on Instagram to see how I live outside of YouTube. The link is down below. Right, enough of that, and now let's talk about intercepted Russian radio communication, which revealed a truly devastating situation in the east of Ukraine, and just overall not so perfect condition for the Russian military in this special military operation. And then we're gonna talk about absolutely catastrophic events for the Russian Air Force. And first of all, right here is the video from the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, which is talking about Russian oil reservoirs pretty much across the entire territory of Russia, in Moscow, in Belgrade, St. Petersburg, Kursk, Krasnodar, pretty much everywhere, spontaneously being caught on fire recently, and they kinda hinting us that this is the work of Ukrainians in some way or another, or maybe saboteurs from the Russia itself. While, if you remember, Russian propaganda never acknowledged that this is the external work behind these self-ignitions. Russian propaganda was always saying that the conditions why it happened are very unexplainable, like we don't know what happened, but it did happen. And obviously a lot of this fuel was destined to go to Ukraine because the majority of these oil reservoirs were extremely close to the border with Ukraine. But at the same time, Russia also had to cut the export of its oil products abroad, which once again shows that these attacks were significant and they did have a damage, they did have an impact on the Russian economy, whether Russian propaganda acknowledges this or not. Besides that, a pretty big icebreaker ship of Russians, also spontaneously as they claimed it, was self-ignited in St. Petersburg, as you can see from this video. And then, if you remember, several days ago, Ukrainians were able to intercept a major $500 million plane of Russians A-50, which is able to do air reconnaissance for up to 600 radios around it. This is truly a wonderful machine, but Russians still were able somehow to lose it. And so, guess what? Ukrainians found another one. It is located right here in Taganrog, as you can see from this map. It is right now stationing on the airfield. So Ukrainians, they do have their eyes in the sky as well, not allowing Russian planes to escape, no matter where they go. Next, just a couple of words from the south before we go to the east. And first of all, in Robotny, Russians attempted an assault, which was able to be successfully repelled by Ukrainians. And in the process of doing this, they eliminated the Russian assault group along with their armored vehicle. And then also allegedly is the video from the southern front lines, where a Ukrainian drone just easily approaches Russian air defense system called Tor, without being intercepted, despite the fact that this is supposed to be an air defense system. And eventually it is being destroyed. But without a doubt, the most significant event in the last 24 hours, especially in the east, is that Ukrainians were able to take Russian radio walkie-talkies, and they were able to intercept the communications between the Russians and their officers, commanders, and so on. So besides just being able to listen to the commands and orders where to go, where to shoot, all this kind of stuff, they also heard about the actual, real situation in the front lines. Because somebody asked, so guys, how's the situation in this and this settlement? And the reply was, it is very bad. It is devastating, like, bro, we cannot do anything. Ukrainians are pushing, Ukrainians are absolutely not being, we cannot breach them. Like, I have no idea, like, this propaganda that they feed the Russian population on the federal channels, this is not even remotely close to the real situation in the east. This is the short summary of this intercepted call. They also mentioned in one of the recent failed assault by Russians, they lost approximately 100 soldiers, something that was not even yet reported by either Ukrainians or Russians, which once again shows that the situation is very, very different from what Putin just told literally the very same day on the federal channels number 1. And yes, by the way, the full video of Ukrainians taking those walkie-talkies and intercepting Russian communications, which revealed the truly devastating situation in the east. The full version of this video is on my Patreon, so guys, if you are curious what else they said, please go ahead and watch it. The link to my Patreon is down below. Highly recommend you to see it for yourself. And so yes, before I can talk about another catastrophe for the Russian Air Force, just the last couple of words from the east. First of all, we have reports from Bakhmut, which claims that Russians continue to press against Chasiv Yar as their main direction in this front line. And right now, the main direction of attacks of Russian forces are next to Bogdanivka and to Ivanovsky. Ukrainians so far are able to repel these assaults. Then to the south in Avdiivka front line, there is this settlement called Orlivka right here, which is partially at the moment of recording this video captured by Russians. This is the place where Russians are trying to push. Ukrainians are still able to hold their ground, and the city is not under full control of Russians. And yet here is a pretty interesting video from this settlement as well, where a Russian infantry fighting vehicle is just driving in the middle of the open field in the road, and then it meets a Ukrainian tank. Ukrainian tank is like guys, are you seeing this? Like, do my eyes deceive me? Like, what this infantry fighting vehicle is doing here and why it's not reacting to us? And probably the guys inside the tank were like, well, destroy him, like, attack him. This is exactly what the Ukrainian tank driver did. The tank crew did, destroying, eliminating completely the Russian infantry fighting vehicle. Besides this, on this small road between Stepove and Lastechkine, Russians suffered enormous losses in their military vehicles. Specifically, they lost 9 armored vehicles, 4 armored personnel carriers, 3 tanks and 1 infantry fighting vehicle in only last several days alone. The city which Russians were trying to capture since the beginning of this invasion, and they still were not able to do it, as you can see from this map, Well, apparently they continued their offensive attempts, even though they already knew the results, and approximately like 10 days ago or less, as a result of another massively failing offensive, Russians lost an enormous number of military vehicles as well, as you can see from these pictures, and these are just a few of them, the ones which I can show on YouTube. And just in general, in the last 24 hours alone, Ukrainian long-range artillery was able to hit and destroy 8 concentration of Russian infantry, 1 command post, 4 artillery systems, 1 air defense system, 1 electronic warfare station, and 1 other important military target. But wait, there is more. Because this last day, Ukrainian air defense was able to intercept 1 more Su-34 fighter jet, which is in addition to several previous ones. But then, during the day, 2 more fighter jets of Russian Air Force were intercepted, bringing the total number of them for 3 in 1 day alone. And these are highly mobile, highly agile, extremely complicated to intercept fighter jets Sus of Russians, which they still managed to somehow lose. And with these newly added planes to the statistics, Ukrainian air defense was able to intercept a total of 13 Russian fighter jets only in 13 days, bringing it to 1 plane per day on average. This is a mind-blowing statistics. Believe it or not, it might not sound like a lot, but it is. And just to show you exactly why this number is absolutely unbelievable, only in 2022 and 2023 combined, in 2 years combined, Russians lost only 25 of such planes, and now they lost 13 of them in 13 days. Now, when you put things in perspective, this does look absolutely, it is just a like the Ukrainian air defenses just did something magnificent. This is a work of art, to say the least. And in total, it is estimated that Russians already lost 25% of their highly innovative Su fighter jets, leaving them only with 106 left, which basically means that the devastating losses of the Russian Air Force in the last specifically 2 weeks and in the last couple of years are catastrophic. This is not like your machines or trucks or like guns even. It's not like you can rebuild them in 1 month. No, these are the machines that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and they spent several months being constructed. So losing them 1 plane per day, this is just like literally like, this is a huge loss for the Russian air defense. Like, I do not know what else to say, but this is, guys, very, very big. And so, as you can see, the situation on the front lines is way different from what Putin presents to his people. So obviously, it is very complicated for them to continue fighting at the pace they are fighting right now. And if you remember from my previous video, which will appear to the left side of me, if you haven't seen it, go ahead and please watch it. Putin looks like he wants to target 2 more places for the potential invasion in the future. I have no idea how he's gonna do it. But whatever happens, guys, I will continue to make these videos every single day, so please subscribe to my channel. This is such a good support for the work I do. Please go ahead and check my merch at russiandude.com. Thank you so much, patrons, for your support, and see you tomorrow.